What makes a neighbor go from mild annoyance to cold-blooded killer? How does a simple ride down a suburban street end in an ambush and a lifeless body on the asphalt? Mells was just enjoying an afternoon ride on his ATV, a familiar routine, the kind of joyride many see as harmless fun. But what he didn't know was that a man named Ralph Fields was waiting for him, hidden, armed, and fueled by seething rage. In mere seconds, the laughter faded. The street became a crime scene, and the killer, he didn't run. He stood tall, turned to the arriving officers, and said with chilling calmness, "I killed him." But what could possibly drive someone to plan such a calculated, heartless act over noise complaints? And more importantly, could this happen in your neighborhood? What if the very person you wave to every morning was quietly plotting something sinister? Welcome to True Crime Acts, where we look into the hidden truths behind some of the most chilling real-life events. Our mission is to uncover the stories that shock, educate, and spark change, reminding us that behind every headline is a victim, a family, and a ripple effect felt by an entire community. If you find this journey as important as we do, don't forget to like, subscribe, and click the notification bell to ensure you never miss another gripping exploration into the depths of human behavior. Your neighbor's simmering anger be the next headline. It was supposed to be just another carefree afternoon. For 24-year-old Jakeem Williams, weekends meant spending time with family, riding his ATV around the quiet neighborhood streets, and embracing the simple joys of life. The suburban streets of Winter Garden, lined with oak trees and neat lawns, seemed like the last place tragedy would strike. Jakeem was known for his warmth, a young father devoted to his daughter and family. Friends would later recall how he lived for these small moments, the roar of his ATV, the laughter of his child echoing through the air, and the nods exchanged with neighbors. But while most saw a man enjoying his life, someone else saw an intolerable disruption. On this fateful day, Jakeem's ride took him down Carroll Avenue, a route he'd taken countless times before. Unknown to him, as his wheels kicked up dust and his laughter rang out, a pair of eyes watched with growing resentment. Inside a modest house sat Ralph Hensel, 61 years old, whose annoyance over Jakeem's ATV rides had been festering for weeks. Neighbors would later admit they knew Ralph disliked the noise, but no one imagined it would go beyond a few grumbled complaints. No one thought that today would be different, that Ralph's simmering frustration had boiled into deadly intent. As Jakeem rounded the corner, slowing momentarily to glance at his phone, Ralph stepped out, calm, purposeful. A revolver gleamed in his hand. Jakeem's body crumpled to the pavement, life draining in an instant. Children screamed. Doors slammed shut. A woman on her porch dropped her coffee, staring in shock. And in the eerie silence that followed, Ralph simply stood there, gun still raised. How does a normal afternoon unravel into unspeakable violence? And what drives someone to cross that line so coldly? Minutes after the gunshot echoed through Winter Garden, 911 dispatchers were flooded with frantic calls. "A man just shot someone," one neighbor screamed. "He's just standing there like nothing happened." When police arrived, Ralph didn't run, didn't panic. Instead, he calmly stated, "I killed him." No hesitation, no regret. Officers handcuffed him, disbelief evident in their faces. One officer whispered to another, "He's acting like he just took out the trash, not someone's son." Inside the patrol car, Ralph offered an explanation that sent chills down every spine. "He kept riding that damn thing up and down my street. I asked him to stop. He didn't listen." The community's shock deepened with every detail. Could noise irritation really be enough to justify cold-blooded murder? For Jakeem's family, the answer was clear, but so was the unbearable pain. Neighbors voiced outrage. One woman, holding her trembling son, said, "This isn't just about noise. This is about a man who thought he had the right to play judge, jury, and executioner." Meanwhile, inside the squad car, Ralph sat impassively, staring out the window. No remorse, just silence. What kind of person calmly confesses to murder as if it's routine? And how does a neighborhood recover from witnessing such calculated cruelty? Jakeem wasn't just a victim. He was a father, son, brother, and friend. At just 24, he had dreams like anyone else. He worked long hours to provide for his daughter, spending weekends with family and making the most of life's simple pleasures. Riding his ATV wasn't rebellion, it was freedom. Friends described him as the guy who'd give you the shirt off his back. His cousin recalled how he planned to enroll in a local trade school, wanting to build a better future. He wasn't perfect, his sister admitted tearfully, but he loved hard. He lived for his baby girl. That's what made the loss cut deeper. He was shot during a moment that should have been routine. A ride, a smile, gone just like that. His death wasn't just a statistic. It was the sudden ripping away of a man whose life mattered. Yet some online comments took a colder stance. He shouldn't have been riding that thing on the street. The family, devastated, pushed back. Noise isn't a death sentence. No one deserves to be executed over a minor annoyance. The conflicting narratives swirled, but one truth remained. A young girl would grow up fatherless. A mother buried her son far too soon. When we strip away excuses and justifications, how can society condone a world where an everyday annoyance ends in a funeral? As investigators dug into Ralph Hensel's past, a troubling portrait emerged. To some neighbors, he was a quiet man who kept to himself. To others, he was a ticking time bomb. Complaints about barking dogs, loud music, and kids playing too loudly peppered his history. Yet no one predicted he would resort to murder over an ATV ride. Digging deeper, authorities discovered Ralph's growing obsession with noise complaints, documented in angry letters to the Homeowners Association. One note read, "This neighborhood's going to hell. Nobody respects peace anymore." But could irritation alone morph into calculated murder? A forensic psychologist weighed in, explaining how prolonged anger can fester into rage, especially when fueled by isolation. When someone fixates on a perceived slight, they may feel justified in taking extreme action, she noted. But even as experts analyzed Ralph's mental state, many asked, why didn't he walk away? Why not call the police instead of grabbing a gun? This wasn't a spur-of-the-moment outburst. It was premeditated. A man lying in wait, weapon ready, decision made. How do everyday frustrations morph into lethal intentions? And could anyone have seen this explosion of violence coming? In the aftermath, Winter Garden wasn't just grieving, it was angry. Hundreds gathered outside City Hall demanding justice for Jay Keem. Community leaders spoke out, decrying the senseless violence. "We cannot let this be swept under the rug," one activist declared, yet not everyone agreed. On social media, a minority defended Ralph's actions. "People should respect their neighbors," one post read, sparking heated debates. Was it a noise dispute or racial bias hiding beneath the surface? The racial undertones added fuel to an already blazing fire. Protesters called for Ralph to face hate crime charges. Law enforcement responded cautiously, stating they were investigating all possible motives. Despite differing opinions, one truth resonated. A young father was dead over something as trivial as a noise complaint, and the community wanted accountability. When justice hangs in the balance, how does a town torn between grief and division find common ground? And what happens when outrage isn't enough? Inside the courtroom, emotions ran high. Jakeem's family filled the front rows, his mother clutching a photo of her son, eyes brimming with tears. Across the aisle, Ralph sat stoic, unflinching as the charges were read. First-degree murder. The defense painted Ralph as a man pushed to the edge, arguing that repeated noise and alleged threats triggered his breakdown. He felt trapped, the attorney insisted. This was a tragic overreaction, not cold-blooded murder. But the prosecution didn't hold back. This wasn't a heat-of-the-moment act, the DA countered. He waited with a loaded gun. He took aim. He fired. That's premeditation. Witnesses testified to hearing no prior argument. Surveillance footage showed Ralph calmly exiting his home, weapon in hand. The evidence painted a chilling picture. Outside court, emotions boiled. Protesters demanded a maximum sentence. Ralph's supporters, a small but vocal group, claimed the media's twisting the story. Is anger an excuse for murder? Or will justice prevail for a young father whose life was stolen over a fleeting annoyance? After days of emotional testimony and impassioned arguments, the jury returned. Inside, every breath felt held in suspension. Jakeem's family huddled together, grief etched on their faces. While Ralph sat unmoving at the defense table, the foreman stood. "We, the jury, find the defendant." The pause stretched into eternity, guilty of first-degree murder. A collective exhale swept the room, followed by muffled sobs from Jakeem's family. Outside, reactions were immediate. Supporters of Jakeem cheered, chanting "Justice served." Yet some whispered about the complexities. Was it a victory, or just the inevitable consequence of a horrific choice. The judge set sentencing for the following month, but the community's emotions swirled, relief mixed with lingering anger. Ralph's defense team promised an appeal, citing mental state considerations, though few held out hope for a reversal. Does a guilty verdict truly bring closure? Or is healing far more complicated when a loved one's absence echoes louder than any courtroom decision? On sentencing day, emotions overflowed. Jakim's daughter, just old enough to understand her father wouldn't be coming home, clung to her grandmother. His mother stepped forward, voice cracking, "You stole my baby. No prison term can fix the hole you carved in our lives." The prosecution sought the maximum penalty, life without parole, arguing Ralph's actions were deliberate, cruel, and utterly inexcusable. The defense requested leniency, citing Ralph's age and diminished capacity under stress. The judge, stone-faced, delivered the sentence, life in prison without parole. The gavel's strike echoed, a final, resounding end to a chilling chapter. Outside, reactions were mixed. "He deserved worse," one protester said, while others reflected on the tragedy's ripple effects. Ralph's family, though fewer in number, wept silently, caught between grief and disbelief. Does punishment ever balance the scales of loss, or does true justice remain out of reach for those left behind? Months after the sentencing, Winter Garden faced the difficult process of healing. A community fund for Jakim's daughter raised thousands, yet no amount could fill the void of a lost father. Locals debated how to prevent future tragedies. Noise ordinances tightened. Community forums encouraged neighbors to talk before tempers flare. Yet under the surface, an unspoken tension lingered. How close had this peaceful town come to more violence? But not everyone felt closure. Some pointed to underlying racial tensions that never fully surfaced during the trial. It wasn't just noise, one activist argued. There's a deeper issue nobody wants to face. Can a community truly heal if the roots of tragedy remain unaddressed? And will Jakim's memory inspire change or fade into another cautionary tale? Months later, new information emerged. Ralph had searched online for how to get away with murder and scouted Jakim's writing routes. Premeditation wasn't just suspected, it was undeniable. This wasn't rage in the moment, it was plotted. Cold, calculated. Why does this matter? Because it strips away every excuse. The noise complaints, the I-snap defense. Ralph wanted Jakim gone, and he ensured it would happen. The community now grapples with a darker truth. Sometimes, evil wears an ordinary face. What does it say about us when simple annoyances become deadly? And will we recognize the warning signs before it's too late next time? Jakim's story isn't just another headline. It's a wake-up call. Over a minor annoyance, a life was taken. A daughter lost her father. A family was shattered. If you believe every life deserves respect, and that anger should never cost someone their future, like, comment, and subscribe to True Crime Acts. We share stories that expose hard truths and spark conversations that need to happen. What do you think could have stopped this tragedy? And how can we prevent another? Drop your thoughts below. Let's keep Jakim's memory alive. Subscribe and hit the bell icon for more stories that demand attention. Because sometimes what we ignore becomes tomorrow's tragedy.